Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric. We got a really fun episode for you this Friday because I've been wanting to talk about all of the Taito widescreen games on unported playlists, but of course a lot of these games have been ported, which makes it impossible. But this hardware is so fun and unique, I definitely wanted to touch on it. And starting off, we're on Darius II. This actually is available on two different platforms from Taito. The Ninja Warriors platform, which is a 3-screen widescreen setup, almost like super wide anamorphic, and then the Darius II dual screen setup, which we're playing here. I actually prefer this version just because it allows me to see the projectiles a little bit closer. Before we get too far involved, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like, subscribe, that notification bell definitely helps us out. If you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, I have a Patreon link down below in the description as well. But I've always loved this hardware, and I have played all three original cabinets, and I would love to collect these boards, but the unfortunate part is they're very difficult to have in a home setup if you don't have a full cabinet, because you need 2, if not 3 different screens set up. And you'll see right down the middle there is a line, and that's what would separate when these were available on CRTs. There would be 2 CRTs put very close together in the cabinet, and that of course is going to be quite difficult to deal with at home. But I love that Taito was always experimenting with their hardware, pretty much more so than any other company. Of course, Capcom had their fun things, and Sega had some amazing 3D hardware with Model 1 through 3, but Taito was really pushing the envelope of what could be done in arcades in the late 80s and early 90s with these widescreen setup games, because we didn't have widescreen televisions at home. I mean, even in the early 2000s, a widescreen TV was relatively rare. They had widescreen CRTs, and I knew a few people that owned them, but honestly, seeing something like this run in an arcade in the late 80s, early 90s would have been spectacular, because the only other place you were seeing aspect ratios like this was in movie theaters, when you had CinemaScope, you had different sort of formats, you had anamorphic, ultra-wide, and even IMAX. That's the only place you got to see things like this. So not only were these graphics better than any home console could perform at the time they came out, they also had a really interesting hook being widescreen, and we just didn't get to see that. But Darius II is absolutely incredible. It's an amazing game. If you've never played it before, I highly recommend it. I am playing these all on MAME because, of course, I don't own the original boards. They're quite expensive and finicky because of the screen setup. But this is an absolutely outstanding game in the Darius series, and of course, it keeps that aquatic fish theme going, and I just love all the graphical effects going on. And this fish here, once you knock him down past his first stage, starts opening up, and you realize that he's got an entire battle assembly in his core with rocket launchers. It's so strange. I love that Taito used fish to kind of delineate what this series is going to be about versus other shmups, and it's just a ton of fun to play and enjoy. And like I said, this just looks amazing in widescreen. And I actually have Darius CS, Another Savior, I think that's the name of the game, on PlayStation 4. It's in the special collector's edition, and I've never even opened it up before. I bought it on a whim. It's been sitting on my shelf ever since. So if you want to see a video on that, leave me a comment down below, and maybe I'll open the package up on camera and do a review of it, because it's one of those things. I downloaded it for the Vita, played it on that, but then ended up buying that special edition. So if you want to see it, do let me know. But I love how many sprites and background layers this hardware can push around as well. All of these clouds, the colors of them, it's just a spectacular looking game. But honestly, on this hardware, my heart belongs to Rastan Saga 3. I love this game. It is absolutely spectacular. The graphics, the sound, the visuals, everything about the Warrior Blade Rastan Saga 3 is just what I want to play as a video game. I remember the original Rastan arcade cabinet. It was at a place called Village Pizza in Okemo, Vermont, when I used to go skiing all the time and work in skiing, and I played the ever-loving hell out of that cabinet. And I have played an original Rastan Saga 3 cabinet as well. It is absolutely incredible. I love the sword and sandal Conan the Barbarian-esque gameplay and graphical style and setting of Rastan, and this game also has an absolutely spectacular soundtrack. It's got real voice samples too, and it's really hard to understand what Rastan is saying, but go ahead and listen for about 45 seconds and I'll come back and talk more about these crazy widescreen games. But enjoy!
Hier kommst du nicht lebend heraus. Es gibt keinen Ausweg. Ich lösche dich aus.
Yeah, that soundtrack's exactly what I want in a game like this, and I just love not only the unique gameplay elements of sliding down this hill here, and I'll show you some other areas where the Warrior Blade does really unique things. It's just spectacular to see this in ultra wide, because this is obviously not 16 by 9. This is closer more to like 21 by 9, and I wish modern games would kind of play around with their aspect ratios a little bit more. The last game that I remember seeing that didn't use the full 16 by 9 frame, but actually masked the image off to make it look more cinematic was The Evil Within on their first level, and that really gave an awesome look, and I just love this presentation style, and I wish developers would do more with it. And you have to give Taito credit where credit is due. This was super experimental back in the day, and these cabinets were massive and probably extremely complex to deal with from a technical standpoint, because you had to have dual monitors. Basically, these arcade boards, just like a modern GPU, would have more than one connection where you could get RGB and sync out and connect these two monitors, and they had to work perfectly in sync or else everything would break down. So not only is this game spectacular and one that I don't hear many people talk about, and you should play, please do, but it's also from a technical achievement standpoint when it came out, just spectacular. And I love just how it looks here, especially in this Horseman's Forest stage. You get to see so much more of what's coming up. You get more time to react to what's going on around you. It's just a fun way to play, and it's unfortunate Taito only made these 3 games and other arcade makers didn't get more into it. I'm sure, you know, arcade owners were probably a little bit hesitant to spend the money on these cabinets because they were way more expensive than anything else on the market for the most part. But it's great that we have these 3 games, and I just love this Skeleton King here sending out these skeleton warriors to attack us. It's so much fun. But the interesting thing is, like I mentioned earlier with Darius II, there's not just a dual monitor setup like we saw with the first 2 games. There's actually a 3 monitor setup as well for the Ninja Warriors, and Darius II functions on that as well. Now you're getting into an aspect ratio that really doesn't exist outside of these games. I mean, maybe someone's made a film at some point in time that had this extremely wide aspect ratio. I've just never seen it. So if you know about it, leave me a comment down below and tell me what it is, because I'd be curious to check it out. But the Ninja Warriors has an also spectacular soundtrack. I mean, you've probably heard Darius music a ton of times before, but this is another great tune from Taito. They made some of the best music in arcade gaming. So go ahead and listen for like 30 seconds, and I'll come back and talk more about how incredible these 3 games are. But enjoy. I really mean it when I say Taito had some of the best sound designers and artists working on their music of all time, and this game too, for being a game from the late 80s, has spectacular graphics. I love this kind of pin-up bomber look, you know, some of the artwork they're able to put on B-45 bombers back in World War II. I love that it's on the wall here, and I also love the mix of sort of genres. This is basically a military game, but you happen to be a ninja warrior, and you're also fighting dogs. The one thing in games that I hate because they yelp when you hit them, but it's the army, it's ninjas, it's cyborg, it's monsters. It's a real big mashup of different things that don't really make much sense whatsoever, but the sum of the parts is greater than you would expect, because this is another absolutely spectacular game. And again, I would have featured this on Unported Playlist had I had the opportunity, but this has been released for other platforms in the ultra-wide format. It was actually remade or remastered on the Nintendo Switch as well, which is awesome, and maybe some people have played it, but I'm curious. Leave me a comment down below. Have you ever checked any of these games out on original hardware, or have you emulated them? Because for me, they're some of the best arcade games around as far as doing something new and unique is concerned. And if I ever did find a Warrior Blade Rastan Saga 3 cabinet for sale that was working, I would 100% in a heartbeat buy it and find space in my house for it, because it is one of my favorite arcade beat-em-ups of all time. It's just spectacular. But yeah, that is what Taito was doing back in the late 80s and early 90s. They were playing around with this crazy ultra widescreen format when no other arcade manufacturer was doing it. And of course, they only released the 3 games in ultra wide back in this period in time, but they played around with it some more, like I mentioned with Chronicle Savior. If you want to see an unboxing and gameplay of that, let me know in the comments down below. But yeah, you could do a lot worse than watching these games in ultra wide on your monitor while you're playing them. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Hit like and subscribe. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you on the next random video for Friday. Bye-bye.